Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to the Fire Engineering Humpday Hangout with Traditions Training. It's going to be a good afternoon. We got the new boss man on the call today, Chief Rhodes, and we got Josh and Sam from Traditions Training, and we'll have that discussion. But hey, it's getting to be that time of the year. We only got about a month, maybe 2 months now to we all get together at FDIC, and obviously every time around this time of the year, we want to hear what's going on with the FDIC, and we got the main man that's in charge of that now, Chief Rhodes. So, Chief, what's going on this year?
Well, great news. Our registration is really tracking well. So it looks like we're going to be heading back to pre-COVID levels. So the true gathering of the brethren will be back in its full glory for the ceremonies and for the after-hour festivities. So looking forward to that. We've got a really special FDIC after hours on Wednesday at 5:30, which is typically Bobby Halton, Salka, Lasky, Bill Guston, and that whole 2-hour block is going to be dedicated to a Bobby Halton tribute. Obviously, Bobby had a very private family service with just a few friends who were able to attend. And so this is an opportunity for the whole fire engineering FDIC community that didn't get to participate in that to participate in a very nice, it'll be some pageantry and traditional stuff, but it's more of a tribute than it is a memorial, I would say. We're going to have about 30 speakers telling their favorite Bobby Halton stories. We've asked people to post their favorite picture with Bobby Halton on any social media and just hashtag Halton tribute. And Pete will pull those off. And so we'll be showing those during the ceremony. If you have any kind of comments about Bobby that we might put up on the screen, you can hashtag Halton tribute to any social media and we'll pull those. So we're trying to make it a fully immersive where even if you're not on the speaker list, somehow you get to participate in it. And other than that, all the regular FDIC stuff, looking forward to opening ceremonies and getting that done, getting all our awards done. We've got Chief Sheridan from FDNY keynoting on Wednesday. And then we got Brian Brush and Brian Zates on Thursday. So looking forward to it. It's looking great.
So, Chief, I was mentioning the other day, we were out doing a class, and somebody was expressing their condolences because they knew how good Traditions Training was with Bobby, and I said, hey, we got a great great new guy coming in, Chief Rhodes, and I've known you for a while, and you're the epitome of low key, and so I guess for the people that don't know you, kind of what's the background in your fire service background? Because I know it, but I don't think a lot of people know your background there. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's no problem. I actually started in 1985 as a volunteer with the Conyers Fire Department, a one-station Atlanta suburb with 25 guys. I volunteered for about 3 months before they hired me full-time. And I worked there for 5 years and as a firefighter. And of course, everybody did everything in the small department. So I was a driver and firefighter and seat rider when I needed to be. Consolidated with the county department in Rockdale and I was there for about 1.5 years. And then I went to the Atlanta Fire Department in 1992. I did 30 years there, the last 17 as a battalion chief. And I was special ops chief, and then I worked in 4 of the 6 battalions and did a couple of admin tours and community risk reduction and a couple other places for a year here and there. I've been involved in the Georgia Smoke Diver program since 1986, and I've been in charge of that program since 1995. And we've branched that out. Most people have seen we have a chapter in Indiana and Oklahoma, currently working on Idaho and Colorado. So that's expanding. And then I've been working behind scenes at FDIC for 25 years and started out as a hands-on training instructor doing special ops, confined space, rope rescue, and then worked up into doing logistics for all hot, and then all the way to doing coordinating all the hot training. So I know all the hot instructors over the years. Did the keynote at FDIC in 2000, I believe. It was either 99 or 2000. Was part of the whole Atlanta Matt Mosley crane rescue deal. That was one of the first big rescues broadcast live on TV. It was a little before the social media cell phone craze took off, but it was broadcast. Pretty much every news station in the country interrupted, and so we talked about that, and we got a lot done. Did 8 years as union president in Atlanta. So I wear a hat now. Lost all my hair during that time, and got a lot of things. At the time I was union president, our big focus was on equipment and safety issues. We had the normal pay and benefit stuff too, but basically we were doing the job of the fire chief and trying to get fire trucks and equipment, breathing apparatus and all that stuff. So that was an 8-year process, and I retired a year and a half ago, and then went to work full time with Bobby as his right hand man in August. The goal was he was going to do a 2-year transition and start handing stuff over to me and become an advisor. And of course, he passed away December 19th, which was about 4 or 5 months in. And basically, it was tag, you're it. And I have had some people say, well, how in the world did you end up being the editor-in-chief of fire engineering? And about the only way I can describe it is watch the movie Forrest Gump and all the things that happened to him along the way. And that's pretty much it. Just happened to be at the right place at the right time and roll along. And I had a lot of really good mentors that opened a lot of doors for me. And that's going to sort of be my payback in the role, is I want to do the same thing for others.
Well, I mean, all those years in Atlanta, you probably didn't go to a fire. So
I went to a
where
couple.
you get all this experience from.
I went to a couple. I had a really good run, especially as a battalion chief. Pretty good as a firefighter. I was a firefighter and a driver at Station 2 out in Lakewood. Drove the tiller out there, and we were probably second busiest at the time as far as stations there. And then when I made battalion chief, I went to a battalion right outside of downtown, so I got all of the house fires and apartment fires on the northwest side of town. And I did have the busiest company in the battalion. But I had a good time as a battalion chief. I loved the challenge of incident command. And of course, Atlanta is a major urban area. You had high rise, warehouse, rail yards. We had it all. So there's nothing like working in the urban environment. You tell the stories and people look at you like you're crazy, but you never know when you're going to pull up on the scene of a car into a building that is actually part of a crime. That was a man catching a woman with another man in a house during a drug deal, while there was a tornado and a hazmat incident on the other side of the house. You just, you don't get that everywhere, and it's kind of fun. I almost decided to retire the morning after the latest rounds of riots and civil unrest. That was probably one of the best shifts of my life, in a sick way. Obviously, nobody wants to see that happen in the community, but it was exhilarating, challenging, and an incredible night going to back structure fires that included, big box stores, restaurants, vehicles. I think it was like 8 or 9 back to back with all our trucks destroyed. And in a sick way, I guess we're all somewhat junkies for that excitement and challenge. It was the first time I'd ever commanded a fire surrounded by 100 riot police and tear gas flying over my head. And I have a couple 40 cal shells that actually were ejected and went in my collar from a participant in the civil unrest. So
Okay.
fun times. I knew I could never top that shift, but I decided to stay on a little while anyway. And once I realized that I wasn't going to top it, then I went ahead and left.
There you go. So now, for all those people to follow show and follow traditions and fire engineering, now you see that mustache in the hallway. Now you get to stop him and take a selfie with him all the time. And, and I don't know about this thing on Wednesday. I think Bobby's going to be pretty disappointed if it isn't full of pageantry and yelling and screaming.
We're gonna have the full bagpipe squadrons and the honor guards, and it's going to be a little bit of both. But yeah, right. I will pledge not to scream at anybody during opening ceremonies. Something I gave Bobby a hard time about, even though I never got to attend. I saw some replays, and I'd be like, "Hey, man, take it down a little bit." He's like, "No, I got to raise it up a little bit." His son even told me, he goes, "Yeah, I told Dad he needed to tone that down a little bit."
All right, so to go with our topic today, I got Josh and Sam on, and Sam invited Chief Rhodes, thankfully, so he can give there's a little bit of his chief perspective of it. Is that one of the things that I've been contemplating here lately and having some problems with is how as a fire service on all different kinds of levels that we digest the information that we get from fires, regardless if it's a historical fire, if it's a fire that happened a year ago, or it's a fire that happened an hour ago, how we take the information, how we take, there's no other way to put it, the mistakes that we make on a fire. Because look, there is no fire department or there is no company that is perfect. The fire is too dynamic. The buildings are too dynamic. How we arrive on the scene, what we have to do and what we have to deal with. As Dan Shaw will tell you, the fire always gets a vote. And, whatever policy, procedure, the way that you deploy your apparatus to the fireground, the way you put people in the task-oriented positions on your fireground, somewhere or another, something's going to get messed up. And that could be, I don't think any lieutenant or captain or firefighter does anything malicious on a fireground to make the fireground go bad. But things happen. It could be a water supply issue. It could be, the company did not go to the right position on the fireground. That's the stuff that me as the chief, I focus for on the outside of the building. When Josh and Sam, take their crews and are doing their tactical assignments inside the building, the mistakes and the miscues, maybe it's an education piece. Maybe it's just the volume of things that are happening inside that building. Everything doesn't always happen perfect inside the building also. So, after that fire is out, for lack of a better term, there's so much information that can be gained. Just, if you have 5 or 6 companies there, the information that can be gained from, hey, company one did this, let's do this better, identifying them and having some kind of plan to work through them rather than glossing them over or, not even addressing them at all. And that becoming a culture. So, if company one does something, makes a miscue, and Sammy, please give me a correct word if I screw one up, if you make a miscue, if you have a failure in your position or how your company operates, somebody's got to be there and say, hey, look, this has to be done. So if engine one did it and nothing gets done to engine one, and it doesn't have to be discipline and anything like that. Or if we don't identify it, we don't have a discussion about it, then engine 2, 3, and 4, truck 1 and truck 2 think, I guess that's okay, because nobody's saying anything, either whether it be the incident commander, the company officer, if nobody's doing anything about it, then it's going to become the way we do business each and every time. It's error creep, so we see an error on the fireground, we don't do anything about it, and it becomes the norm. So There's been some really great reports done on firefighters line of duty deaths in our area that, me and Josh are in, or Josh and I are in. And, obviously they're read all across the country. And as tragic as those fires are, and how neither department would want that to happen, is that there's probably 15 fires before this tragic fire where we had learning moments, where we had the ability to capture, things that are probably in this report, both reports that say, hey, we had this operational issue, we had that operational issue, and how many times did we have that before this tragic event that we didn't correct or we didn't properly correct? So, I kind of lay that out, and I'm sure, Chief Rhodes, is there something, you get what I'm saying? Is there something in the chief area that you want to discuss before I turn it over to Josh and Sam?
No, I think that's anytime you're looking at post-incident action, and I think you're headed in the immediate, like, hot wash, tailboard, critique area, which to me is the most important. And there's a psychological phenomenon that happens to everybody, called hindsight bias. And so the longer you go without reviewing the incident, the more the facts change, the more your mind fills in the blanks. And it's not malicious. It is absolutely a natural phenomenon. So one of the things that I focused on as the chief, and it's hard to do because as we were talking about pre-show, it's easy to call everybody an idiot that you did this wrong. And I had to step back from that. Even though I saw something, I was like, why in the world did they go there and do that? Instead of dressing them down for doing that, what I really had to do as the chief was I had to find out what they saw and why they made the decision that they made to do what they did. And sometimes it surprises you because you're coming in after the fact and you're looking at the end result. And you may find out that although you want to call them an idiot for doing what they were doing, what they saw and the information they had, you might have done the same thing. And so it's not always what they did that's important. It's why they did what they did. And I think if you do a walkthrough after an incident, I always like to just put everybody in place and say, let's walk through. You got here first. What did you see? What did you do? And we didn't talk about anything that was wrong until afterwards. And then we would say, okay, now knowing what we know, what would you have done different? And then we replay it again. And that's the way you learn. But there is a danger of making it punitive and making everybody feel like they're stupid. And sometimes they are, Sam. We know that sometimes people just totally make the wrong call, but we really have to investigate why they made the call they made, because it may surprise us when we find out what they were seeing and what they were. And no matter what people say about training and situational awareness, your situational awareness is what it is when you get there. I mean, it's a combination of all your prior experiences and your education and your knowledge, but it is what it is. And so when you say maintain situational awareness, that's kind of like, it is what it is, so, but that's my take on it. I'll turn it back over.
So, yes. So I kind of want to go is, so I mean, we look at this house fire, we go to this house fire, there's, let's say there's no injuries, there's no tragic event, maybe we had a couple rooms off. There may have been some missteps along the way or miscues, or, even the guys knocked it out of the park. The guys and gals knocked it out of the park. I mean, there's always something we got to, it's not, I always say I'm never going to be satisfied. So we're always going to find something we can do better. And then when we come to have that critique, like Chief Rhodes was saying, is that, for mine, it would be after the fire, everybody's kind of around, I got, if I was lucky enough to be a chief with Josh and Sammy as company officers, we'd all be standing around, all right, Josh, what did your company do? Sammy, what did your engine company do? Oh no, Sammy wouldn't be on an engine. I'm sorry. Sammy'd have to be on a truck or a rescue. but I'm going to point out these issues that I saw. So as a company officer, and we'll start with Josh and I'll go to Sam, is that, I give you that. What, one is that, how do you receive that? Especially in an atmosphere where you have all your peers around you. And then, what's the feedback that, you give the incident commander that's talking to you? And then how do you translate that back to your crew?
Yeah, good question. I think first and foremost, it's a healthy dose of humility, right? Like if the fire chief is coming to me and giving me true, good, honest feedback, I think that's one of the hardest things to do, not just in the fire service, but just life in general. For somebody to give you like true, genuine, honest feedback, that's one of the hardest things people can do, and it's not done enough. So if a fire chief is coming to me or battalion chief, and he's got, hey man, you could have really improved on that. If for nothing else, I know that was hard for that person to come to me and say that. And I need to have the humility to be like, you know what? It took a lot for that person to pull me up and to give me that feedback. So I need to be genuine in return and actually do something with that information. Commonly, two things I see are you have the person that's kind of flippant with it, or they're performative. What I mean by performative is they're going to do it for show. Like, okay, yeah, thanks, chief. And they're going to say the right things. They're going to do the right things. Hey, I read this from a book. And, but at the end of the day, they don't actually believe in it. And that's a very dangerous place to be. But because it's disingenuous, most people can see right through that BS. So the other side of it is that I just have to take ownership, right? So I have to take ownership. I have to let it sink in. And I don't mean to be too corny here, but like, if not me, then who? Like, I'm the company captain. I need to go to my people and say, hey, listen, this is on us, and this is what we do to make it right. And when the battalion chief sees that we're working on, trying to correct that issue through training, through experience, through holding our people accountable, me as the captain just having crystal clear expectations of the fireground and what I expect of my people and out of myself, we can take care of a lot of these downstream issues in the first place and get out in front of it with that, as Roger would say, that upfront investment. But yeah, I just have to take ownership of it and genuinely do the things that are going to rectify the issue and make sure they don't happen again. Because mistakes are going to happen. We need to have enough grace with our people to know that, okay, these things are going to happen. Like you said, we're not perfect. Let's go ahead and fix it. If I make a mistake a second time, the same mistake, that's an issue. And that means I was not genuine about it. I was being performative. And then that's when the accountability and maybe punishment does come into play. But if we can remove the fear of punishment, hold people accountable, take ownership of ourselves, like, sky's the limit, right? I think you're still on mute, Chief. That's all I had for that until you want to keep going.
It's my bad. So I got some questions for Josh, but I'm going to let Sammy chime in here. It's we've been a little bit, just so you know, there's a fire about 2 blocks from my house, where I'm at right now. So I'm a little distracted.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sammy.
No, I mean, we already covered a lot of things. I'll just say this to a point you made earlier. As far as we have to address them, emulation is stronger than policy. I genuinely believe that. The crews will emulate successes, but they can't recite the policies to you. So if they see something successful, they'll try to repeat it. And if they see something unsuccessful, they'll try to avoid it. I can speak for myself. It's not uncommon for me to just walk up to the incident commander as soon as we come out of the house and apologize, address it right then and there. And then when we get to that critique with the incident commander, and the way we do it is with company officers only, and then the company officers take that back and deliver it to their personnel. I think that's very valuable. If you do it just among peers, then that's where you get into the arguments and the defensiveness and fights. Whereas you address it, you own it. The incident commander can make sure everyone else is aware of it, and they don't have to try to push it down everybody's throats, if that makes sense. And going back to what Chief Rhodes was also saying is one of the most difficult things to do, especially when we do it in a time compression manner like we do when we do a tailboard critique, is to truly understand cause and causation. And so that requires asking questions before the assumptions, and then trying to put it all together. And he is correct. Sometimes somebody's just an idiot, but other times you can, okay, I did not realize that that's what you saw, or that's what you were told. And cause and causation, to me, is one of the truly most difficult things to understand on the fireground. I can say that many times I've done something on the fireground that I thought was beneficial, only to realize that another company was doing a functional task that was actually creating the same benefit, and possibly in a better way than we were.
And those are the kind of facts that change if you wait a shift to do the critique. If you come back the shift after, not to say that it's useless, but your mind has filled in so many blanks and you have justified so many moves because you want to be correct, that it's almost pointless to do it that far afterwards, because everybody's had a chance to think through and justify everything they did. So they come back and it's a totally different incident than it was that day.
Yeah, it was always interesting that when we did after action critiques, when I was the ops chief, is that I go, yeah, that's not what happened that day. Where did all this come from? So we actually started making them document company actions in their NIFRS reporting. So then that's what we would bring to the critique, is go, yeah, this is what you said the day of the fire you did. Now it's all changed. You know, how did this happen? So that was always an interesting piece. So Josh and Sammy, so, you know, it's been a long time since I've ridden the right front seat of a fire truck. And, you know, I've always been in the Tahoe or the command vehicle. So one of the things that I, you know, tried to do is that when you're in that group, so we have, you know, there's 5 or 6 lieutenants and captains around there. I mean, is there even some apprehensiveness of admitting your mistake in that group, or should it be that we should all, I mean, obviously we should all be honest and forthright with everything at the fire, but I mean, even in that little bit of a group, like 6 or 7 people, in your experiences, do you find that people posture or, you know, hide information is probably not the right word, but don't want to admit mistakes? I mean, am I off base there, or?
Oh, I think you're 100% correct. I think shame is a hell of a drug, and so there are a lot of people that are going to feel that, and they're going to do everything they can to try to avoid that. And that's, I mean, there's some human nature to that for sure. And again, on the flip side, the people that know something went wrong but aren't going to have the hard conversation and give that honest feedback because they're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. I think there's too much of that, and you can wrap up really hard information in a graceful way. You just have to have a little bit of tact about it. But at the end of the day, you need to get that message across. And if somebody isn't receiving it well, at a certain point, that's on them, because the information has to get out there. I just heard like a good leadership snippet the other day where there was one person in the back of the room just monitoring a leadership discussion with a bunch of CEOs. And the guy in the back who's just monitoring stuff, he's like, raised his hand, like, I have zero idea what this guy's lecturing on. Can you explain that? No, not one single CEO had raised their hand. And then once that one person said, hey, I don't know, then all these CEOs started raising their hands and be like, yeah, that whole thing you lectured on for the last 20 minutes, I had no idea what you were talking about. So sometimes it takes a little bit of bravery to say, yeah, I don't know what happened, or I did see this one thing. And then I'm sure if one person out of entire box alarm saw something, somebody probably saw something. And you just have to be brave enough to be like, yeah, I messed this up, or, hey, I did see this, and this is how we can improve. And then again, having the follow through. That's where we talk about having these courageous conversations. That doesn't mean anything if you're not going to have the follow through and the back end investment of making that change happen.
Ricky, I always used a coaching method. I mean, that's kind of my style anyway, but there were some chiefs that were really adamant about, you did this wrong and you need to do better and shame on you. But I always looked at it as, what happened, get past it, learn from it. And I'm always looking for patterns. So if I pull up and I see your guys are screwing around, or it takes them forever to get a line stretched, and then they're fumbling with their mask and all that stuff, I bring that to your attention, but I'm not just hammering you with it. And I'm waiting to see the next time. And if the next time is the same, then I'm a little bit more aggressive with my critique, but I feel like I owe you the chance, like to coach, just like a football team or whatever gets in the locker room at halftime, has a little pep talk, they make some adjustments. I'm looking for you as the company officer to make that adjustment on your own time, not relying on me to come show you how to do it. So the next time I want you to feel that you let me down. And if I can develop that rapport with the companies, then they're wanting to do good and they don't want to let you down. And if you give them that look, just like a parent, you give them that look, your kid knows that, man, that wasn't good. I better not do that again. But you also got to build them up when they do good. It can't all be tear down, and there's no absolutes. So there are those people that nothing gets through, and you just have to start following a policy. You have to start disciplinary action or whatever. But I never did that on a first run. I mean, it was like you had to really prove your reputation that you were not going to change anything before I would ever resort to like a formal write-up or a performance improvement plan on your evaluation or something like that. That would be the last resort. Just having the conversation and coaching and offering assistance. Do you need help? Is this not your wheelhouse? Do you need, maybe I need to take Sam and have his rig run over and do some drills with you, because maybe this isn't your wheelhouse. And that'll help you out. And it's not me putting the pressure on you to perform in a training environment or whatever. But the coaching, I love when I see chiefs being the coach instead of just being the chief,
Yeah, Chief, it's kind of like saying, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah,
I say that a lot as a dad.
It's horrible. I always did that.
Yeah.
And I'm like Sam too. That's I teach in my like HR classes. Is like, you really want to take the wind out of a chief's sail. If you know you screwed up and he's coming to meet with you, you meet him on the ramp and you go, Chief, first of all, I just want to apologize. I know I screwed up and I got all this paperwork I'm ready for you to sign and I'm fixing to hammer you. And as soon as you apologize, I'm like, damn it. Damn it. He's human. He's not just an employee.
Yeah. Yeah, not trying to make this story time, but that reminds me of the Navy SEAL sniper school. So they used to make it punitive to get through that school. It used to be where if you messed up, there was going to be corrective action taken. If you messed up so many times, you're out. And then what they ended up doing was flipping the script. And then what they do is assign a sniper instructor to every student, and it became a team effort. So instead of this being a punitive thing, like, hey, yeah, now it's a one-on-one. Yes, I did mess up, we did mess up, but here's how we're going to correct that. And we're going to do this together, hand in hand. And then it's going to be a tell, show, do. And then once you get to do, then it's going to be crawl, walk, run. We're going to keep increasing the intensity and the stress. And we're going to get you to a place to where hand in hand, we're making this better together. But like you said, at a certain point, it absolutely may take discipline, but not the first go.
Yeah. And that's a small percentage, usually really small percentage. Most people want to do right. Some people don't have the skills, and that's what you got to figure out too. All right. Because I know our organizations aren't perfect. So sometimes our organizations set people up to fail, and then we get the back end of it. We get assigned new officers or we get a new battalion and we go in and we see this performance. And it's like, yeah, there is some personal responsibility, but there's also some organizational responsibility to have the resources and the right people training and the right policy and all that to make it right. And that's a hard balance. You don't want to take out too much on an individual that's suffering from a long-term organizational issue. You just have to change them a little at a time. I've been there.
So Sammy, to go back, I didn't know. So we were talking about that group, the pressures that you feel when you got those 6 or 7 company officers and we're having this discussion, in case you forgot the original question.
I think it comes back to what's already been and shared in different words is if I can show the chief that I actually care at what he's saying, then he doesn't have to try to care for me. And part of that is I believe that our chiefs know that once we have that discussion, they're going to see us walking around. I mean, what a better time to go back and walk through the fire, talk about what you did, why you did it, where tools, a ladder should have been placed, or what your intention was when you put them in a room to search, what the communication is. So when they see that, again, if they know I care, then they don't have to try to care for me. Then they can just make the point, and then they know that that point is going to be passed down to our crew. I used to have a captain that would say, if I have to be a captain, it's because you made me. I know what the expectations are. And as long as I do my job and perform and listen and make the corrective behavior on my own accord, then he doesn't have to do it for me.
So, I mean, this kind of sounds like this is all good information. So what if we have a soup sandwich of a fire? I mean, this is just nothing went right. And every one of us on the Humpday Hangout today has had that fire. I mean, all of us, none of us are immune from it. Doesn't matter what size department you're from, what your demographic is, what your county's made up of. All of us have had that soup sandwich fire. And then what is the tone, and how does that get handled at a tailboard critique then? I mean, it's easy to be fine and upstanding when we got a couple rooms off and we had 1 or 2 mistakes. When we have that soup sandwich fire, which none of us want, but actually happens, I mean, I would say that takes on a different animal. So, Sammy, what's your experience with that type fire? I know you've been to one.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a good thing in our department that I can say that when we end up going defensive on a fire, that's when things get nasty. And like I said, I think that that's a good thing in the sense that we have guys that care about getting the job done. It becomes a negative thing when we start to go after each other, which can happen. And as soon as that starts to happen, then you're going to get defensive posturing. You're no longer receptive to what you're hearing. And I think in those cases, sometimes it is better to say, okay, tell me what you did. Tell me why you did it. Like you guys were saying, get it out that day and then table it and let people go back and digest some things. Otherwise, you're going to hit a point where you're not productive and you're creating more damage than benefit. And the whole purpose of the tailboard is to ultimately identify deficiencies in a beneficial manner and something that benefits you in the future alarms.
And Josh?
Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously with everything Sam said. And then, just give permission for the hard feedback. I think if the battalion chief gives the line officers the opportunity to speak and get it out first, I think that really empowers them. Sometimes the chief will start going down one road and it can flip the conversation, or it's easier for the line officers to kind of hide behind a couple things, or it'll change minds a little too quick. And what I mean by that is, you're trying to come up with a solution. And if you have the highest ranking person there come in and be like, I think we should do this. And then all of a sudden everybody toes the line and goes that route with it. So if you can empower those line officers to speak first, air the dirty laundry, but obviously in a respectful and productive way, facts, not feelings, maybe in this type of instance, get that out first, make it productive. And I think Sam really hit the nail on the head. At a certain point, there's probably diminishing returns. And so, get out the core content, get out the most necessary things that you can take direct action on immediately, make that change happen. And so, we can come back to that next box alarm a little stronger.
I wrote that one down, Josh, the facts, not feelings. I've heard of facts before acts, but I like the facts, facts, not feelings. So.
Yeah, that's good.
That could be a new sticker.
Yeah, no kidding. Believe me, it could be a new hashtag. Believe me. So-
Yeah, right.
So, Chief, I mean, you had great companies, but I mean, you've had to have a soup sandwich of a fire occasionally.
Yeah, so looking at that a couple of ways. If I'm new into a battalion, like, the first few months, and I go to one of those, I guess back to what Josh said about, putting the work in on the front end. The chief is really only as good as the company officers. It's just like the computer. I mean, if you're putting junk in the computer's no good. And so I have to set the expectations, the tone, provide the environment, the resources to train to the way we want to do things. And if I haven't had time to do that, then I kind of look at it as an organizational issue that I've got to tackle, and I got to build a training plan, and it's going to take time to fix. If I've been there a couple of years and I feel like we've got it going, and it all of a sudden is a soup sandwich, then I always looked at it as it was on me, because I obviously didn't do something to prepare the guys for that situation. And we didn't drill enough in that area. And even though the policies were there, my intentions were there, somewhere I must have missed the ball. So I got to find out where the miscommunication was. And, I didn't necessarily beat everybody up on that. I took that as that was my failure. If they weren't all working together after a year or two being in the assignment. But just a different approach to, it kind of depends on what your situation is. But back to finding out the root cause, the cause and effect. There are some times where you just have such limited information, and it's a low frequency type event. Maybe it's a commercial fire versus a residential fire. And your guys kind of go into that automatic residential tactics, 2 3/4 on a 400 by 600 warehouse with heavy flames showing. They do the same thing. So those issues can be corrected, and they're done out of habit. But don't always look at the guys for the problem. Look at yourself as the leader and the chief.
Hey, made me lose my thought there for a second there, Chief. But okay, I got it back now. So we all, obviously Atlanta's a big city. Josh has a sprawling county that he is an officer in, and Sammy's the city of Wichita, and obviously the surrounding community that protects a pretty wide area. So, I mean, what are our thoughts on how do we get, Sammy's shift, or my shifts or Josh's, A, B, or C, group 1, 2, or 3, group 1 has a fire on Monday, and, maybe it's been a while, and we're going to have, so every kitchen table, let's say most good fire companies at every kitchen table, when group 2 comes in, group 1 had a fire, and this is what I heard. This happened, that happened. This company did this company did that. And so I think, part of, my thought process here is how do we get this information that group 1 had this experience? So group 1 had this fire, whether it be a unique fire, a routine fire, or, it's, a fire with multiple rescues and fire traveling up, void spaces, blah, 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 is that, how do we get all these critique points that we're trying to get these 7 company officers say, hey, here's a critique point 1, critique point 2, for this particular fireman, but then we're just sharing it with 7 people, and those 7 company officers are going to work with their 7 companies of firefighters to correct any of those issues. And how do we get that? I'm trying to see, I think I know the importance of getting that information out to everybody. Is that, so group 2, group 3, group 4, or shifts B, C, and D, understand, hey, we had this fire, we had this miscue, this is something we probably need to work on. So, I mean, is there any validity to that, Josh? Or, I mean,
Yeah, I like it. We actually kind of had a little bit of a situation this morning where there was a little bit of like, hey, I heard this is what happened. Just this morning when I came in, and they weren't completely incorrect, but then we went to the ground zero person. We went to, all right, straight from the horse's mouth, tell us what was up. And the story changed a little bit. And then we at least got the facts. So I think it's important and imperative that we get to the root people who can get the good message out. Because fire department, I mean, we're so good at, taking, a grain of salt and making it a salt mill by the end of it. But go to ground zero, get that message out quick. And like the chief said, if we have that confirmation or hindsight bias, after action reports and taking more than 72 hours may be too long. So the shift transition with the company officers, I think in the morning can be super important as long as you're talking to the actual people. If you are collecting after action reports, copy and paste them, get them out within 72 hours, get them out so you see straight from the horse's mouth and you're not getting that confirmation bias. And maybe this is a little too 2023 of me, but we actually had a chief officer, and there's many iterations of this, that would do a quick YouTube video. He would actually record himself, post it, and then send it through the department email. And so it got everybody within, a day, and everybody can check their email, pull up a 3-minute YouTube video. Hey, this is what happened. This is what you need to know. Questions, come back to me. And it was a instantaneous way to reach everybody in the department. So like I said, through social media, phones and everything, maybe that's an opportunity there also that we're not utilizing very well. But I agree with the chief. The longer we drag this out, the more fires you're going to run, the more mistakes that may happen because you were lacking the information and not learning through somebody else's experience.
Sammy, as much as you guys have been going to work in Wichita, what's your take on all that?
I'm not trying to deflect work here, but I think it comes down to the incident commander to identify big issues and take it up the chain of command with their peers themselves. I think that you're at risk of parent deafness. I mean, if it's a company level mistake, the whole department doesn't need to be hammered with that. But I think, in my opinion, I think we need to ask 4 basic questions as to whether it goes up. Was it an educational deficiency as far as organizational training or ideology? Was it a deficiency in tools or equipment? Or was it a deployment model deficiency that led to our problems? And then the 4th thing is there something worth sharing? And that's where you can create a video. Give you an example. We had a theme park that caught fire, and one of our trucks had trouble getting positioned. So they had to go around an entire city block to come in from a different direction. So one of the things we did is we went down and we moved a Jersey barrier with a Halligan, a hook, and a rock, and then showed them how you can use the roof hook to measure the width of something to see if your truck can go through. So that's something positive that can be passed on to the department.
So basically, you moved a Jersey barrier by yourself. Is that what you're telling us?
2 guys, yeah.
We used to have a class at FDIC that taught that, moving heavy objects for no apparent reason.
It was just Sammy in bare feet in his head against the Jersey wall, just pushing against it.
Can't you see him though, like the scarecrow in Wizard of Oz? The square root of an isosceles triangle is.
But I guess as we kind of, we got a couple minutes left here. It's just so I mean, I like Sammy's thought, and I like Josh's. I definitely wrote down, because I mean that would certainly stop a lot of the false things that get said about a fire. It's amazing. I in our after action reports, so I GoPro everything. If I happen to get there first and I'm the incident commander, I GoPro from the minute I get there, probably to 30 or 40 minutes into the fire. And then, take that video, have it approved by the operations chief, and then we'll take that and then give it a QR code, and then we'll send that out to people so people can see, hey, this is the fire we had. This is why, that crew had to back out of here. This is, hey, they're making a great ladder grab, whatever it is. I mean, it shows exactly what was going on there, rather than the hearsay. And, I hear they didn't have much fire, and yeah, the wind wasn't having that much effect on the fire. Well, when the wind's blowing from the rear and fire's blowing out of like 5 windows in the front, and the crews trying to go in there. It resets it a little bit because sometimes radio traffic doesn't match up with what's actually happening on the fire ground. So, but all good stuff. But I mean, AARs I'm sorry, Pete's sending us a message that I guess the fire in Buffalo is things are not looking good. So hopefully everything comes out there. So there's a big fire in Buffalo, and we have an unaccounted firefighter in Buffalo. So hopefully that comes to a good resolution rather than a bad resolution. So, but so, getting back to that critique point is that, with Sammy, I agree with what Sammy says, and I agree with Josh says. I just feel like we got to get the information out. I don't even need to say what company it is or anything like that. Is that, hey, we had this fire. It was challenging or unchallenging. Look, none of us, especially in this group and a lot of fire departments, 1-room and 2-room fire should not challenge any of our fire departments. I mean, this should be pretty good for us. If you have good disciplined company officers and, company officers that are competent and know their job and have their firefighters trained well. And just like, somebody said before, an incident commander is only as good as those 6 or 7 company officers. I mean, I sit in the car and say, they're all going to do everything right. And we're going to follow the policy or SOP, and everything's going to get better in a couple of minutes because I have good company officers, so that's a crucial point to make sure. But, if we have those missteps, I think everybody kind of needs to know we had them, and what either we're doing something to correct it, or, hey, we're not going to make that mistake again. So Chief, do you got anything to add in?
Just like the incident command system, the after action is scalable. Like Sammy said, if it's a little company mistake, a guy had some issues getting his mask on or whatever, that's handled at the company battalion level. If you have an injury or a near miss, or heaven forbid, a line of duty death, obviously you scale that up, and it's going to become a bigger production. Some examples of that that I saw during my career, we had the Stephen Solomon incident where we had a line of duty death, and Chief Rubin was our chief at the time. And to his credit, I mean, we did all the interdepartmental review. We had outside agency investigate, and we had the city keep that structure for months. And we opened it up. We rotated every single Atlanta unit through there for a class and a walkthrough of the building. And we opened it up regionally so other departments could come. And so this was like an 8-month operation of training. So when you have something that is of that magnitude, then you need to increase the resources and time that you spend on the after action training and report and all. On the short end, like a battalion issue, we did have a boilerplate form of, like Sam said, is 4 questions. We had like 5 or 6 different things that we wanted you to fill in that was in addition to the incident report to give everybody some perspective. And if you have resources and training, that's a good unit to put in place, is like a unit to like coordinate that stuff and put it together in packages. Believe it or not, as crazy as Atlanta was, in like 1993, we actually had a truck with 2 camera guys on it that were firefighters that was decked out like a news truck, and they responded to every fire and filmed. And we took all of this before GoPros and before helmet cams and all that. And we were getting a lot of documentation on things. And that unit ran out of it was staffed 24 hours a day, but it was assigned to training. And of course, new administration came, budget cuts. It ended up sitting out in the parking lot and fading away with $100,000 worth of satellite equipment and stuff on it. But one of the reasons it got shut down was fear that we would be sued if we filmed something that was wrong. But nowadays it's like, man, I would encourage guys with the helmet cams and all of that stuff, but have a system to collect it so it can be used, not just posted on social media for hype purposes. Establish a program and encourage guys to submit that stuff so that you can use it. But it takes bandwidth and it takes resources to put it together. At the lowest end, the company officer coming on duty has to have the curiosity to ask, hey, smells like y'all had a fire last night. How'd it go? And then when they tell them, no matter what, as soon as breakfast is over, let's get in the rig and let's go look at it. And you just can't beat that level of training. You know, maybe something happened, maybe it didn't. If they don't give you any report, you can at least go look at it and say, how would we do it? You know, and that's better than any simulation you can run on a computer, is to get out there and, you know, if you can, maybe you stretch a line, and, you know, if it's a vacant house or something and nothing happened, maybe you can get a little training in on that day on the burned out shell. Not trying to get anybody in trouble. There's policies against it in some places.
Sammy, you're doing a lot of nods down there.
Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness. Oh, we didn't know.
No, I completely agree with the chief. Go take a look at them and call them up. Like, hey, what happened here? Why did you guys decide to do this? And then kind of what Josh was saying too, you know, when you talk to the horse themselves, my guys know that if they ask a question, I will call the person directly. And if somebody's saying something that doesn't line up, go, nah, it's not the way I understood it. Let's call them. And it's funny. Then people are like, oh, well, you know, hey, that's just what I heard. Well, a second ago, you were absolute about it. So talking to the horse is a good thing. But as we close, I do want to make one point. I think that honesty goes both ways. I think when you can be honest and admit your mistakes, you're honest with your crew and say, hey, you messed up. When you tell them they did something good, if they know that you're going to be honest with them, then they can take that to heart. They don't take it as, oh, he read in this leadership book that he's supposed to say something nice to me every day. Yeah. So I can say, at least for the guys I work with, they know that if they mess up, I'll tell them. And they know that when I tell them they did a good job, I'm being sincere because I'm honest.
Yeah, I get a lot of my critique points from watching Sam's helmet cam videos. I learn a lot about what needs to be done in fires, because Sam's usually critiquing you as the fire is going on. So, you know, they're rather interesting. I don't think they're publishable by YouTube standards. But they are very good training aids.
I just always get confused because all I can see is like the guy's name tag in front of him. It's like some issue with the tripod height or something.
Josh, we got a couple minutes here. You got anything you want to wrap up with?
No, I think Sam hit the nail on the head. I love it. Appreciate the opportunity as always. Thanks for having me. It's a good discussion.
Yep. And then the last thing, and I'm sure I'll let Chief Rhodes chime in, is that, so, you know, I really wanted to kind of focus on Sam and Josh as company officers. And, you know, even as a command officer, and I think Josh mentioned it earlier, you know, is getting that honest feedback, is that, you know, look, there's an assistant chief that I talk to like on a daily basis, and him and I do not have, we're remotely can agree on things. But it's a different mindset that he has, and analytical, and he just can't let things go. And that's the first guy I call once I get done a fire. You know, all right, man, hit me with it. You know, tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what I said wrong on the radio. What, you know, what did I do wrong? And, you know, and the guy will just wear me out, you know, and I consider this guy my friend some days, but, you know, I'm hanging the phone up. I'm like, man, did he really have to be that hard on me? You know, did he really have to tell me everything? Tell me that I had the wrong shirt on, or, you know, whatever it was. But I mean, that, you know, having that good, honest feedback, like Josh said, that's the only way anybody's going to get better. You know, glossed over mistakes, glossed over stuff like that is not going to help any company officer or chief officer. And all it's going to do is create a culture in the fire department, that mistakes are not corrected, and we're not going to do anything to change. And that's just going to lead to a tragedy. So, Chief Rhodes.
Yeah, I think it's important as the chief at any level with any type of incident after action report is to just open the forum up and moderate and don't give any insight or opinions on the front end, because with any position of authority, as soon as you say what you're going to say, then people have a tendency to just agree with you and bobble their head, or they won't contribute because you've already said. They're like, oh, well, he already knows what he thinks, and I'm done. So sometimes it's better to reserve your critique, your final summary and kind of after action plan until the very end. And so and you can't just do that overnight. You got to build the trust with the companies every day and have the relationship to do that. But if they trust you, then they're going to be honest and give you opinion, and then you can critique it at the end. Don't give your position out in the beginning and taint the whole process.
All right. Well, we're all straight up 2:00 here Eastern Standard Time. So I'm sure Pete's back there watching his clock right now, telling us to get off the air. But I want to thank Josh for taking time out of your day. As always, a very unique perspective from a trusted voice that I have there in Josh. And Sam, I don't know what words to say about you. So
he's on fire.
We're out of time, Chief Rhodes. We're out of time.
And then obviously our new director at FDIC and fire engineering, Chief Rhodes, thanks for being on. And
Yes,
we all can't wait to get out there in April, and I hope everybody hope your hand gets worn out from people wanting to shake it, and welcome the new commander in chief there. We're all very excited.
If you haven't signed up, sign up. Early bird ends like the first week of March. I think March 10th. So get signed up, and we hope to see you there.
All right. So Pete, from all of us at Traditions Training, and once again, thank you to Fire Engineering, Chief Rhodes, and the Clarion Events Group for allowing us to do this, Humpday Hangout. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you all at FDIC. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.